Good afternoon. I'm your host, Brian Buckmeyer, here at the Law&Crime Trial Network. We've got a great selection of cases for you. So some pretty basic questions you would ask of any cooperating witness. What is your deal? What are you getting out of this? How are you going to benefit from it? Joseph Scott Morgan is with us today. Good afternoon, Joseph. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Brian?
I'm great. Always a pleasure to have you on. Now, we anticipate that the ME is going to testify after the break. And Joseph, expect a slew of questions from me. I know that you're excited about this. I'm excited to hear what you're going to say. It's going to be great. But for a moment, let's talk about this cooperating witness. I mean, whatever you want to call him, snitch, cooperating witness, helping out, testifying for his own benefit. What credibility did you get from a person who committed a crime but is only telling the truth, because it's his truth, we're not sure if it's the truth, to kind of save his own skin? I mean, do we credit it? Do we not credit it? How do you look at that?
Hey, think back to yesterday, Brian. You and I both sat here and we listened to this guy's testimony, where he went through great detail talking about, making it eventually down to Sievers' house. He and the accused staked the place out, essentially. They ran errands, they went to Walmart, they did all of these different things, and he gave it in these details. And then, he talked about striking her with a hammer. He's the guy that delivered the first blow, and you could see the emotion that was attached to this. Now, I don't know that necessarily emotion is an indicator of validity or level of veracity in a witness's statement, but I got to tell you, it doesn't matter what I think, doesn't matter what you think. What matters is, how does he come across to the jury? And I felt like he was a compelling witness. I really did.
Now, I want to give you two hats to wear here when I ask this question, Joseph. You have a person on the stand who admitted to committing a murder. I mean, from a scientific background, what questions would you ask of this person if having your background, I'm going to make you part forensic, part lawyer. What questions would you be asking of him to kind of really dive deep into the truth of what happened that day?
I think that I would like to, as from a medical legal death investigative perspective, I think that I would really press him on the details of the attack and keep going back to that. I would want to emphasize that and talk about the dynamics that were involved. And, from a prosecutorial standpoint, this gives it even more weight. I want to hear the gory, gritty details of what precisely happened. If he is asked a specific question about how did she react, he would say, well, she was stunned when I hit her. Okay, well, define stunned for me. Give me an idea of what you saw. So I would like to see that extended out and to kind of give us an idea, because look, when the ME comes on the stand after the lunch break today, Brian, they're going to go into very, very graphic detail about these injuries, but the ME was not there. Okay, they weren't there. This guy was, and yeah, he was the perpetrator. But let's see how we can marry up the injuries that the forensic pathologist saw at autopsy at the ME's office with what this witness is stating as far as the physical altercation went, and see if that actually matches up. And then it's up to the attorneys to kind of paint this and keep this narrative alive as they're moving along.
Yeah, and I think that'd be great for the prosecution. And if you're a defense, you want to try to, obviously, the opposite. You want to try to distance his testimony from that of the ME to be like, hey, man, the science says that this happened, but you're testifying to this. You're obviously a liar. I'm going to believe the science. It's going to be interesting.
I got to tell you, one other thing that I would like to ask, and this is kind of a compelling piece of evidence, and they talked about this. They actually talked about wearing these coveralls. I'm fascinated by this idea of these coveralls, because this goes to specific intent, that they were there to do damage. That he already made one comment about, do you remember when he said, I was afraid that she was going to turn around and scratch me? And by virtue of that, she's going to leave evidence. I want to know about these coveralls. Well, give me more detail about what these coveralls look like. Were they saturated in blood? Did you have blood on your face? Was it on the collar? Was it on your hands? Just tell us about this, and tell us specifically about discarding these garments. I want to know more about that and really dig into that, because that's an evidentiary tieback with this physical evidence.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of glossing over was done here. Let's take another look at some of the cross-examination of Curtis Wainwright Jr. just a few moments ago. So a few minor details we're getting there about the planning, how this all went down. Joseph, I want to bring you back in again. We're starting to hear more of those details you were talking about how this all went down, the planning, the motive. Again, it's starting, I guess, to paint the picture that we believe is going to be connected by the ME down the road. Is there anything else that we can kind of glean from this testimony that you think might give us clues to what we're going to hear in the next few minutes from the ME?
I think one of the things that we can come back to here, Brian, is this. And one of the things that shocked me with this fellow's testimony yesterday was, even though they went to great lengths to make it to the scene of the crime, or what would become the scene of the crime, they showed up ill prepared. I'd mentioned it was not a comedy of errors. It was just a horrific event when you bring these people together that, in my estimation, are not very bright people. Their singular motivation is, whatever they're going to be paid in relation to this. And one other thing, that was, not only were they ill planned, we had talked about early on, I think a couple of days back when I was on the air, and we talked about the kind of feverish nature of these injuries that Teresa Sievers sustained, and they are quite brutal. I'm just reading over the autopsy report right now. You would think that this was an impassioned event relative to that there was some kind of histrionics here where, maybe there's a physical relationship involved in something, or, some kind of romance that's gone wrong, because that's normally what we see in what we refer to as an overkill case. And many times these bludgeoning or blunt force deaths are related to that. But what it comes down to is what happened is the witness that is currently testifying, he reacted, Brian, out of fear. So when you see this frenzied environment where he strikes her, it's a reactive event to the fear that he was experiencing, because he thought he had the drop on her. Remember, he talked about he was going to put her into like a chokehold, and that just fell apart because he kicked this dog bowl. Remember, he goes into this great detail about the dog bowl and the noise that it made. And so it's not necessarily, it's interesting, those of us in forensics and people that study behavioral sciences, they always tend, when we get an overkill case, to talk about things in terms of relationship and passion and all that. What it comes down in this particular case is lack of care in the perpetration of this crime, and also fear. It was literally motivated by fear that he was going to get caught, that she didn't. He made a big deal out of her kind of rotating slightly and not necessarily making direct eye contact with him. He wanted to prevent that. He didn't want to. So they go to all this trouble to put together a kill kit. They've got the coveralls on and all of this, and they kick a dog bowl. And I think that speaks volumes about the people that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, but for that dog bowl, maybe we not have seen such a horrendous murder,
Right.
and but for that horrendous murder, maybe this family would not have got the justice, or at least the prosecution that they were seeking. So, yeah. I mean, I guess I start putting dog bowls in weird places in my house just in case. But we're going to continue more with this case and play-by-play from Joseph Scott Morgan and more after this break.